Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Quiz. In today's detailed video, we are going to do a deep dive into the ultimate guide to choosing the right laptop. With so many options and specifications out there, it can get overwhelming to figure out what you really need. To break it down into simple and comprehensive steps to ensure that you make the best choice for your needs and your budget. Get ready for the laptop buying masterclass. And to start us off, we have a laptop from our sponsor, the INFINIX Inbook X2. This is INFINIX's second laptop, and since I never had my hands on the first generation, I have the gray color. It also comes in blue, in green, in red, and also the chassis is an aluminum alloy with a brushed face. It's very pretty. It's very light. It's 1.2 kg. It also comes with the 40 watt hour charging brick, so it means this entire package is quite easy to carry around. Ladies, I'm talking to you. The screen is a 14-inch IPS panel, with 1400 nits of brightness. It's quite good for shaded outdoor use, and being a matte display means that even when you have a window behind you, there's very minimal glare. It has a 50 watt hour lithium ion battery, which means you can use it for somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. Yeah, so the port situation. So you have USB-C power port. It's also a FireWire port. Unfortunately, it also, being a FireWire means that is what you should use for your second monitor. But you have a mini HDMI display port. On this side, you also have a USB-A port. The other side, you have a micro SD, so moving your data from your phone to your laptop is quite easy. A separate USB-C port, headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter, pretty good. You also get another USB-A, and finally you have a Kensington lock. I don't know who uses any of those. You also have two bottom firing speakers on the laptop. It gets pretty loud, but unfortunately they have no bass. The laptop is quite light and very easy to carry around. Yeah, so for the processor, what I have comes with the i5, but there are three types of processors available on these. You get the i3, the i5, and the i7. This is the 10th gen 4-core low-power Ice Lake processor. Runs at about 1 gigahertz, can be boosted to about 3 gigahertz. It's a low power consumption processor, which means that, it allows the laptop to give you better battery life. But for daily tasks, this laptop has been quite amazing. It's able to breeze through most of the tasks. It comes with an integrated graphics card, which means you can play most of, your small games, F1, FIFA, Overwatch. So it's pretty good when it comes. So the main board is manufactured by INFINIX. It also comes with 8 GB of RAM, 2 dual LPDDR4 sticks of RAM. On the i7, you can get the 16 GB. Probably it could be upgraded to the 64 GB. For the storage, you get a 4C NVMe SSD at 512 gigabytes. That's pretty fast SSD. And it's quite expected for this generation of laptops. The Wi-Fi is a dual AC band, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz card, so works pretty much across all types of Wi-Fi, comes with Bluetooth 5. Unfortunately, on this laptop, you don't get Windows Hello or a fingerprint scanner, but you get Windows 11 Home included in the package. And so now back to the guide. So the first thing when you're choosing a laptop is to identify the purpose. First and foremost, this is the most crucial step. You need to be honest with yourself. Why are you getting the laptop? It's like getting a pair of shoes. Different shoes, different purposes. And that's the same for laptops. Some laptops are designed for specific tasks. Some are for video editing, gaming, 3D rendering. Some are for just your normal day-to-day usage. You could use them for your office tasks. You'll be using them maybe to browse occasional hobby games, playing Scrabble or something like that. However, you need to be able to select the 3 most important tasks that you do every day. So if it's 3D editing, video editing, or is it office work? Once you've come up with that, then that will help you choose the kind of laptop that actually will work for your needs. For example, if the 3 tasks for you are sending emails, doing browser-based jobs like on Google Docs, Trello, and so on, and maybe the occasional game of cards on your laptop, then what you need is a general purpose processor and maybe something like 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now that brings us to processors. The processor is the brain of your laptop. I know most of you have seen terms like Core i3, Core i5, Core i7, or if it's an AMD, you've seen Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7. Of course, the higher the number, the more powerful that processor is. So after those numbers, you'll typically see at the very end of the processor number something like U for low power, Y for even lower power, or maybe a H and K, which means that those are the processors with the most potential. They can be used for things like video editing, studio, rendering. They can be used for gaming. And these are processors that are designed for high workload, high performance. And they can handle, very demanding applications without having any bottlenecks. On the other hand, if you're primarily using your laptop for, simple tasks like web browsing, document editing, and light productivity tasks, then a processor with a U or a Y at the very end, those will be pretty sufficient. These processors will typically prioritize battery life and efficiency over raw power. And it's important to note that the generation of a processor, like on the laptop that we just saw, and 12th gen, being the latest, or maybe an AMD Ryzen 6000, typically indicates that it has newer technology, but it doesn't indicate that the performance has been improved. And now we move to the next most important bit of choosing a laptop, the graphics card. So in this, we'll consider things like rendering, video editing, 3D modeling, or even gaming. Here you need to pay very close attention to the graphics card because that is why you have a graphics processing unit. There are 2 main companies, NVIDIA and AMD. These are the ones who are known for making graphics card for laptops. NVIDIA is known for their RTX and GTX line. They have Quadro maybe at the end. These are usually suited for rendering, content creation, and gaming. The higher the series number, the better the performance. For example, our RTX 3080 will outperform an RTX 3060 in demanding applications like video editing and 3D rendering. On the other hand, you have AMD graphics cards. These typically will have an RX before the name, and like NVIDIA, the higher the model number, the better the performance. However, rendering and content creation, NVIDIA cards tend to perform better because they have something known as a CUDA core. These are generally preferred over AMD, and it's also important to consider the power consumption of a graphics card. The higher the wattage variant, e.g. an RTX 3060, 130 watts is better than actually an RTX 3060 80 watts. The performance will actually be better on the card with higher performance, but also that means more heat generation, and it also means that the battery life will suffer. If you plan on gaming or you have resource-intensive creative applications, you can opt for laptops with integrated graphics solutions. They are less powerful, but they are more energy efficient and suitable for basic tasks like video playback and casual gaming. The next important thing is the memory, or the RAM. RAM, known as random access memory, is where the laptop stores short-term tasks and open files. It's essentially the workspace for your programs and applications. It's where the laptop performs tasks right after you've opened them to ensure that they can perform simultaneously without slowdowns or performance issues. For most day-to-day tasks, like web browsing, document editing, and light productivity work, 8 GB of RAM tends to be the sweet spot. However, if you plan on things like gaming, video editing, or running multiple resource-intensive applications, you want maybe something like 16 GB on the minimum, all the way to something like 32 GB for more intensive workloads. It's also important to consider the type and speed of the RAM. Modern laptops come with DDR4 or DDR5 RAM. The higher the number indicates that the technology is newer, the 4 and the 5. And also, it means that the transfer rates, the data transfer rates tend to be better. Look for RAM with speeds of at least 3200 megahertz for optimal performance. Then we bring the storage. When it comes to storage, SSD is pretty much now the absolute minimum in today's world. SSDs are faster, they're lighter, and they're more reliable than a traditional hard disk drive. Those ones were heavy and quite clunky and slow. They offer significantly faster boot times and application loading. Also, the data access speeds tend to mean that you have a better and smoother experience. Aim for a minimum of 256 GB of SSD. That is enough for most of you. 512 GB is quite adequate for most people. I mean, when you consider that for a lot of people now you get access to cloud storage, then anything beyond 512, 1 TB tends to be overkill. If you require more storage space, you can always decide to back up on the cloud. The screen of your laptop. Now, this is what you tend to look at all the time, and it's quite important to be able to consider this when choosing the right laptop for you. There are two main factors that you will need to consider: the screen size and the panel type. So the screen size, is measured diagonally and could range from 13 inches to 17 inches. That's the normal screen sizes that are available in the market. For an ultra-portable laptop that you will carry around, what you want to look for is something that is around 13 or 14 inches. That will be lighter and easier to slide into your bag or backpack. But keep in mind that small screens can feel cramped, especially if you have to work with multiple windows or with documents that tend to stretch across the screen. For most users, however, a screen size between 14 and 16 inches is just the sweet spot. It offers a very good balance between portability and usability. On the other hand, for gamers, video editors, and advanced content creators, what you want is a big screen size. So you'll be looking at the 17 and 18-inch laptop screens. Of course, these big screens are very good. However, they tend to be very bulky and heavy, and they tend to become quite hard to carry around. Another important factor is the aspect ratio. So basically, how wide or how tall is the screen? For media consumption, you want a 16:9 aspect ratio. 16:10 is the most common and is quite okay. Anything else beyond that now tends to be quite task specific. Someone who uses Excel documents might want a taller rather than a wider screen. Screen resolution is something else that you need to pay attention to. It's how sharp the screen looks. Entry-level laptops will typically offer full HD display, which is quite good for most people, especially if the display is smaller than 15 inches. For gaming and creative work like photo editing, video editing, you may want to go higher on the resolution. Go for something that is QHD, Quad HD, or something that is 4K, an Ultra HD screen. These give you much better detail and clarity, which can be quite great for various editing applications. However, keep in mind that the higher the resolution, then it also needs more powerful graphics cards, and they tend to drain the battery because they are brighter and they use more resources. For most users, having a QHD display will offer the perfect balance between screen quality and battery life, while you also get higher frame rates without needing to go for that high-end GPU. If you plan to use your laptop outdoors or in very bright environments, you'll want to consider the screen's brightness. It's measured in nits. Anything above 800 nits on a laptop is considered very bright and should offer good visibility, but you hardly need that. For most users, you will want something between 300 and 500 nits. Another important factor, especially if you're a gamer, is the refresh rate. It's measured in Hertz, Hz. It tells you how many times the screen refreshes per second. A higher refresh rate means smoother motion and more responsive experience. If you do office tasks, that is not very important to you, because how your screen tends to refresh is not that important. While most screens will tend to have a 60 Hz refresh rate, for gaming they get all the way to 120, 144 Hz, and even 240 Hz for a competitive gamer. The higher, the better, But on the other hand, for a creative professional, someone who's doing maybe video editing, color accuracy is more important for them. This is where you look for things like Adobe RGB range, the sRGB, the DCI P3 kind of range, and the percentage coverage. So the higher the percentage coverage, the more accurate the reproduction of colors on the screen. So basically, if you're in content editing, video editing, that is what you'll be looking for. And as we come to the summary, one of the most important things is battery life. This is quite essential, especially for people who consider the laptop for portability. So if you plan on using your laptop away from a power source, then a longer battery becomes quite important. However, batteries tend to be affected by the combination of your processors, your graphics card, your screen size, all these things that we have spoken about before. So when you're buying a laptop, you have to put all these things together in consideration. I mean, as we said earlier, laptops with more efficient processors like the U and Y series tend to have integrated graphics and will have lower resolution screens. These will give you better battery life than those with dedicated graphics processing units or GPUs, which consume a lot of power due to the bright and more detailed screens. Manufacturers will give you estimated battery life. However, in real-life testing scenarios, it tends to be a bit different. And depending on the applications that you're also running, the battery life may either increase or decrease. So it's important to remember that this is a very important factor when you're choosing the laptop. What's the size of the battery is also quite key, because then it tells you how best you are going to utilize that battery. For some people, the ports and connectivity might play a huge role, especially if you're someone who needs to be able to use a secondary screen, or you need to be able to get data in and out of your laptop, like for a content creator. You might want a laptop that has maybe a HDMI port, a Firewire port. So being able to choose a laptop that has more ports, or ports that are specifically useful for your own needs, is quite important. Look for DisplayPort or Thunderbolt 3 or 4, especially if you're a photographer or videographer who might need to use also an SD card reader, so that would be important to have as a port. For traditional ports, you have the USB-A. They are quite okay, but right now they are kind of moving towards being obsolete. On the other hand, you want to consider how your laptop connects to the internet. Wi-Fi 6 is the current connection standard. And so having a Wi-Fi 6 means you get faster connection for your laptop. Overall, at the end of the day, you also want a pretty or good looking machine if that's important to you. This has nothing to do with performance. This is more on how a laptop looks when it comes to the aesthetics. So is it built of aluminum? Is it a plastic laptop? All these things will, of course, affect the final cost of the laptop, but also the durability. An aluminum chassis means that the laptop feels, more premium and more solid. The hinges might also be built better than one that has a plastic chassis, which could break easily. You could have spill-resistant keyboards, especially if you're choosing a laptop that might be used by kids. That will save you from the headache of having to replace the laptop. If you use your laptop in very dusty environments, maybe you're an engineer or a surveyor and you tend to use your laptop outdoors, having a laptop that could have a military-grade standardization could come in handy. On the other hand, if you're in a very quiet office, you do not want a laptop whose fans run too loud. And that becomes important. That means that if you don't have very loud fans, most likely the laptop is also slim. All these things might come, to matter to you. Finally, you have brand reputation and customer support. These ones matter when it comes to after-sales service. Some brands mean that you have easier access to their customer support centers. For others, it might be very hard to get parts to replace once the laptop, has a problem. If you break your screen, for example, how easy is it for you to be able to get that replacement? So having a company that provides good reliability and after-sales support is quite important. Choosing the right laptop can be a daunting task, but this guide should make it just a bit more easier for you. When you consider all the factors we've spoken about, you'll be well equipped to make the right choice to buy the laptop that actually works for your needs. There isn't a one-size-fits-all decision, so make sure that you're choosing what works for you. You do not want to go overkill and have to spend so much money, and yet you do not want to go below the needs that you have and end up having a laptop that feels slow and clunky. Lastly, a special shout out is for Apple's laptops. These now run powerful M series chips. These laptops are quite impressive in performance and efficiency, and especially when you consider how much better they are in terms of cooling and providing excellent battery life. See you in the next one. Like, subscribe, and share.